Okay, good evening, everyone, and thanks very much for joining us for the last of the current series of Fireside Talks. Tonight's speaker is Rachael Garrett. Rachel's keen interest in built and cultural heritage has seen her fill posts with both the National Trust and as a colleague here in Council's Museum Services. However, in her current role as a project officer for the Causeway Coast and Glens Heritage Trust, she's worked on numerous projects, ranging from heritage railways to storytellers of the Northern Periphery and Arctic region. This evening, she'll be speaking about the Uncharted Histories project, working with community groups to record the little-known histories of the Causeway Coast and Glens. So thank you very much, Rachael, and over to you.
Thanks, Nick. I'm going to put my glasses back on and I'm going to share my screen. And I will do that. So, of course, as ever, whenever you try it out before it's actually live, so to speak, it always works fine. And then when you try to share it on the actual thing, it always is a little glitchy. But I'm hoping that you can all see my slides okay.
That's you now.
Perfect. That's great. Thanks so much. So I just want to say good evening. My name is Rachael, and as Nick has kindly said, I'm project officer with Causeway Coast and Glens Heritage Trust, or CCGHT for short. And I just wanted to start by saying thank you very much to Nick for inviting me to speak this evening. It's very much appreciated. I was saying there, it's great to actually have a series of online talks, such as the Fireside Talks going on, and the themes of place and language are so important for our local heritage. So it was really lovely to be involved and to come and speak to you all this evening. Place in particular is quite an important theme for the Uncharted Histories of the Causeway Coast project, which I will be mostly discussing this evening. I've been leading on this project since it kicked off in March 2022, just last year. And we've been doing a good bit of work on the project, and particularly over the last few months. I'm actually particularly excited to share some of that with you tonight. But to start with, I'll just give a very brief overview of CCGHT and what we do, and then I'll move on to discuss the Uncharted Histories project and some of the stories that people have put forward. So very excited to talk to you about that. You'll be glad to hear that I'll keep it fairly brief, and there will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. But if you have any burning questions throughout, you can pop them in the chat, and we'll do our best to sort of answer them at the end. So as I said, just start off by talking a little bit about CCGHT and what we do for those that aren't familiar. Sometimes we are aware that people aren't always sure what it is exactly that we do, and we do sometimes get confused with council, who stole our name in 2015, as we always joke. So it is actually we found it pretty good to sort of clear up who exactly we are and what we do early on. So CCGHT was established in 2002, and we're a partnership body and a registered charity that is devoted to protecting, promoting and enhancing the natural, built and cultural heritage of the Causeway Coast and Glens area. We work across quite a large remit. We work across quite a large area, which encompasses both Causeway Coast and Glens Borough Council and Mid and East Antrim Borough Council areas. And we have a few different funders, which includes NIEA, our two local councils, and Tourism Northern Ireland. And we quite often apply for funding from EU projects and for Heritage Lottery Fund projects and the like. And generally speaking, we work with quite a large variety of partners and groups, and basically everything we do, all of the activities that we do are in partnership. We're working with the likes of Museum Services or RSPB, National Trust, Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful. I could go on all night. We work with many different partners, and most of the activities that we deliver, we do our best to sort of bring what we can to the table and to work in partnership to make the most of our resources and the resources of others. Our work is mostly focused in on 3 areas of outstanding natural beauty. So that's the map that you can see on the slide. You'll see on the far left to the west, that is the Nevna Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, or AONB for short. In the middle, that's the Causeway Coast AONB, and then to the east on the right of your screen, that's the Antrim Coast and Glens AONB. So you can see that that's a very large area that encompasses the vast majority of our coastline, quite a lot of the coastline of Northern Ireland, but all of the coastline of this area that we live in. And AONBs, they are landscapes of national significance that are judged to have outstanding natural built and cultural heritage, and also outstanding scenery and landscape character as well. So they're really special places. And a lot of our work is really geared towards promoting and protecting those landscapes that we have. We also have some roles in relation to the Giant's Causeway World Heritage Site, specifically in relation to that designation, the UNESCO designation. So again, we undertake some activities to protect the geology, to promote the sort of the heritage of that area as well. So everything that we do is sort of geared towards working across our AONBs and our World Heritage Site. So with that out of the way, a little whistle-stop tour of CCGHT and our raison d'etre, I will move on to sort of talk a little bit specifically then about the Uncharted Histories of the Causeway Coast project. This project, which is almost like a program that we hope to run over several years, it really came from conversations and feedback that we've had with local communities over the years, and especially over the last few years as well, which has really, highlighted to us again the importance of, history and heritage for our local communities, that many people want to see local stories and local heritage celebrated, shared and recorded for posterity, and also that this is something that even visitors to the area value and appreciate greatly. A lot of our work, a lot of CCGHT's work, overall we do a lot on natural environment, biodiversity, geology, and other aspects of the natural heritage often take a lot of precedent as well. But we also recognise that built and cultural heritage is very important for these landscape designations for AONBs and for our work. So when we started to sit down and look at our actions for the Causeway Coast in particular, we decided we wanted to, put together a programme which really highlights the rich nature of the heritage across this spatial landscape that we're helping to look after. Rather than, we feel that might work better rather than delivering a series of separate events or one-off activities. We thought we'll sit down and we'll try to come up with something that we can make a little bit more out of this, and we can really try and put together something special, something different that we haven't done before. So we're hoping that that's what we've achieved with Uncharted Histories. And it, clues in the name, it is focusing specifically on the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty. And on the slide, hopefully you'll be able to see a map that the pale pink area, that is the area of outstanding natural beauty. And it extends for 30 kilometres along this absolutely fabulous coastline that we all get to enjoy. It extends from just outside of Portrush to the west to just outside of Ballycastle to the east. And the red, the area marked in red, that is the UNESCO World Heritage Site, Northern Ireland's only World Heritage Site, the Giant's Causeway, of course. So it encompasses this area that's, absolutely stunning. It is somewhere that we get to enjoy, as I said, every day. And even us that live here, we can appreciate just how special it actually is. But it also encompasses areas that are very, very famous internationally and locally as well. And that's an amazing thing. It's a great thing. But I know I've taken a lot of joy in leading on this project, which is hoping to just shed a little bit more light and just to help highlight how many other special stories we have in that particular area, how much more heritage there is across that entire landscape, not just the Giant's Causeway, not just Dunluce Castle, and not just Carrick-Gareed. And even though there are millions of people who go to those places every year, there are so many untold and uncharted stories that make up, the communities and the villages and the history of that area and that place. So it's something I'm really been enjoying working on. and it's been a really positive experience so far. And yeah, we're hopeful that we've been able to use it to shine a light on some of this heritage. And as I chat through this evening, you'll get to see some of the ways that we've been trying to do that. A big part of achieving that for us has been to try and use emerging technologies and emerging digital platforms to try and again highlight and capture, record, and make accessible these lesser known stories and histories from the Causeway Coast. We did take inspiration from some other recent projects in Northern Ireland, which has made really good use of digital heritage mapping to do this. We felt that would be a really effective way of making this heritage more accessible, more interactive, and more visual, and that might appeal to people and be a really good way of just capturing that information for posterity as well. We felt that it would really help us to share some of these stories in a more engaging way. And it works quite well for us because we're always trying to promote about the AOMBs and landscape. So the mapping aspect also works really well for everything that we do here at CCGHT. So it all kind of came together. So we started off by running a series of workshops, working with respected heritage consultants, Quarto Collective, who were just helping me with the project and some of the community engagement. So we were able to run workshops where we actually got members of the community and community heritage groups around a table, and we actually had big pieces of paper with maps printed on them, and we actually sat down first and foremost with post-it stickers, pens, and we all just had conversations, and that was actually a really, really effective way to start. People were actually writing their stories down and reminiscing, and actually talking about the place. So a lot of the time, like stories that and histories that they might not have really thought of as such, or not really have thought to have shared, were coming through. So somebody was like, oh, I remember that my uncle used to work in that shop and that's not there anymore. I remember this. And then the conversation was flowing, and it was really interesting just to see that happen, and the amount of stories and the amount of memories that people have of the places where they live and where their families come from. That was really, really interesting, and was a very productive process for starting to collect those histories. And like I said, it kind of shows you how much you don't know about an area. Even if you think you do, there's always more to learn. So from that, then those initial workshops, then we also followed up with the different people who attended those, and with our local heritage groups again, and just more widely, and we was able to collect in more information, get like photographs of objects, get family photos, get all sorts of stuff gathered in, and work with people until we have this body of information and histories that then we now are able to share and make accessible for people and have recorded for posterity as well. So we basically, our digital heritage map is the first step for that. So on the screen, you can see the first picture on the left. That's a screenshot from the map, which is just gone live on our website about 2 weeks ago. We've been working with James Bamford, who is an award-winning digital heritage mapper who's worked on other projects across Northern Ireland. And he's just done a great job. He's an absolutely lovely man, and he's done a really, really good job of putting all those histories literally onto the map for us. We will be having a launch for the map on the 9th of March, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute or two. And anybody is welcome to attend that. So if you happen to be free on the 9th of March, please do feel free to come along. But I will come back to the map in a minute or two, because what way I would like to finish my talk this evening is to see if I can actually get the internet to play ball, and I think I'd like to click into the map and get a couple of the histories up and just show some of you some of the fascinating stories that we've had come through the project. So I will come back to that. The other important part of what we've been doing as well is, as I alluded to, it's wanting to not just share the stories, but to like capture them for posterity as well. So in addition to the digital mapping, we've also partnered with Museum Services, and very much appreciate the support of Nick, who has helped me and has helped us a lot. We would like to ensure that the histories and information that we've collected are recorded. So they will be uploaded to the Northern Ireland Community Archive, so they can be made accessible there and recorded alongside the thousands of other records on the site. We've also recently appointed a student volunteer who will be assisting us in this. And this archive, the Northern Ireland Community Archive, obviously, as I'm sure most of you are aware, is managed by Museum Services, but it is also something that any group from across Northern Ireland can contribute to and have contributed to. And I'd say that we at CCGHT are very appreciative of having access to a resource like this, because we're not a museum. And it's just so useful and so great to be able to actually pass along the information that we would collect for a project like this and hand it over to the experts, so to speak, and have it there for the future and for people to be able to access. So it's just that's a big part of what we're trying to do as well, and we'll be working on that in the coming months. And then moving forward, thought I'd just briefly have we whistle stop with what we are going to be doing in 2023. There still are quite a few activities to come under Uncharted Histories, even though our map is finished, and there are definitely still opportunities for people to get involved if you have an interest in doing so. Firstly, as I mentioned before, we have our map launch coming up on the 9th of March at Ballintoy Parish Hall between 7 and 9 p.m. And that's, I'm very excited about that evening. I think it'll be really interesting. We have a really good guest speaker, Colin Dunlop, who's a marine archaeologist, and he's been working on LiDAR scanning and mapping of our coastline, and that process has actually uncovered a lot of new sites of interest and new potential archaeological sites. So Colin's going to be giving us a wee bit of a sneak peek of that on the 9th of March. And James Bamford, our digital mapper, will be there as well to talk about how you can use the map and digital mapping and how to sort of make the most of it. So it should be really interesting for anybody who's interested in local heritage. So again, if any of you feel like you would like to attend, please do. Then we also, again, in partnership with Museum Services, we have a heritage exhibition which will be at Ballymoney Museum in the autumn. So we're just confirming the details of that at the moment, and it's very exciting. It's something that we at CCGHT haven't really done before on this scale, so we're very excited about it, and it's going to be a really good opportunity again for members of the public who want to potentially, put their objects forward to be included and displayed in a museum space and through this exhibition. So that's a really good opportunity for people again to get involved. And there will be several associated events and activities that we'll be organising alongside the exhibition. Hoping to have a variety of different workshops and tours, but again, we all have to get that organised. We'll be doing that over the coming months. And if you're interested, as I said, in anything that I've spoken about this evening or our work generally, or you think you might want to put something forward for the exhibition, for example, you can give me a shout. I am more than happy to circulate these slides to Nick to send out to you all after tonight. I'm more than happy to do that. My contact details are there. As well, I was saying about like the different events and stuff that we have coming up for Uncharted Histories, or even for CCGHT generally. We do a lot of free events, so particularly over the summer for families and on all sorts of things, and a lot of nature and geology events as well as like historical events. You can follow our social media pages or go on our website, ccght.org, to find out what we have coming up. And we put everything out through there as well. And most of it's free. And we also, at our website, we have quite a lot of free resources that would include booklets on local heritage and history, or local biodiversity, geology, a lot of the different topics that we sort of work across, and they're all available there, so free to download. So I will make sure to include our website link as well for you we could get that sent out in case any of you are interested. So that's me sort of the whistle stop tour of Uncharted Histories, but I thought, as I said, that I would attempt to actually go into the map and see if I can show you some of the histories. And if that doesn't work, I have a couple of slides as a backup, because that's probably the most interesting part of this, is the actual histories and the stories that people have been kind enough to share. So I'm going to see if this works. Can you see that, Nick? Oh.
Sorry, trying to unmute. No, I can't see your webpage at the moment. I can still just see the slide.
Okay, that's
So you
great.
might have to unshare your screen and then share it again.
Yep. Stop share.
Yep, that seems to be working now, Rachel.
Great. Now I just need the map to play ball. So this is our digital heritage map. As I said, it's just went live on our website there a couple of weeks ago, and we'll be officially launching it next month. So I am going to try and find, I have a few sort of histories picked out in my mind that I would like to raise with you this evening. So I thought, seeing as how the theme of the Fireside Talks this year is place and language, that I would start by clicking on this map point, which is for Crockbotiny Paupers Graveyard, just outside of Ballycastle. So this is a paupers graveyard that was sort of in use mostly in the 19th century, and apparently was began in 1841, around about the same time as the workhouse was constructed nearby. And it's said locally that many of the people that are buried at this graveyard were victims of the famine, and obviously then later just for unfortunates from the workhouse. So it's obviously an interesting, lesser known sort of location in the landscape around Ballycastle. But what was particularly interesting for me was it was at a workshop at Ballycastle that the information on Crockbotiny was put forward to the project, and it was actually raised by several members of the group who were at that workshop. And the history there is interesting enough, but what I found even more fascinating was the fact that there was 3 people there that were talking about this, and each one of them called it something different. So they all were sort of having a friendly but lively debate on what to actually call this graveyard. So there was a Crockbotiny, there was Crocknakinny was the other option, and I think a sort of mixture of both, which was like Crocknatinny. So it just was something that I thought I would bring up this evening, especially thinking about place and language, because it was quite an interesting one where it kind of shows that there isn't always consensus on what certain places are called. There's probably whole stories around why it was called that in the first place, and is it that it had 2 separate meanings and 2 separate names, or did it have one name that maybe someone misheard along the way? That was a great theory that we were discussing on the night when this came forward. So I just thought that was a nice, interesting one to put forward. And you can probably see on the screen, possibly maybe the text is too low. I'm not going to try and butcher the pronunciations, but there's a couple of different theories on what the name means. And the knock or crock is from a derivation of Irish, which likely means hill, but it's the second part of it that people can't agree on. And therefore that affects what the name is called. So it could be something to do with fox, it could be something to do with firewood, or there's also a story that this might have been the location for an ancient signal fire around the coast. There's a lot of different theories, but no consensus. But I can tell you one thing, that the debate on this will continue. So I thought that was quite a nice one to raise for tonight. It just shows you there's not always an easy story, and things change over time. The second point I wanted to put forward or to show is a lesser known story about an area that we all know. So this one is at the Giant's Causeway. This is in the World Heritage Site. And it's research that was done by a gentleman named John Logan, who kindly put forward this information for the project. And he had looked at the Emperor Dom Pedro II from Brazil, who had traveled to visit the Giant's Causeway in 1877. And Dom Pedro was he was an interesting man by all accounts. He was very, very well traveled, and he used to travel all over the world, so much so that his own subjects back in Brazil used to call him Pedro de Mala, which meant Pedro of the suitcase. And I'm not convinced that they meant it in an affectionate way. I don't think they were too happy with him gallivanting all over the place and not doing his job as an emperor too well. But he came to the Causeway. He had a very healthy interest in geology. A lot of gentlemen did in the 19th century. And a lot of these gentlemen geologists would come, of course, to the Giant's Causeway if they got a chance. So Dom Pedro landed in or sailed to Ireland and was able to get the train to Portrush. He was a little bit too early for the hydroelectric tramway, which was about 10 years later. So he had to get a carriage from Portrush to the Causeway. But by all accounts, he had a very, very good time. And that was despite the fact that he was accompanied on his travels by both his wife and his mistress, but they still seemed to all have a nice time together at the Causeway. So I thought that was quite an interesting one too, that I had never heard of. And again, you can learn something new even about places that everybody thinks they know everything about. And then finally, I wanted to find it here. I wanted to raise a point from Portrush. So this point I just wanted to, this history I just wanted to share with you this evening, mostly because it reminds me of quite a nice part of this whole process as well, which is the personal nature of quite a lot of the histories and information that people have been putting forward to Uncharted Histories. People are quite humble a lot of the time. You'll get a lot of people going, oh, well, that's just like, you know, my family photograph, or that's just, you know, to this person or my village. No one's going to care about that, or that's not really history. But a lot of the times you'll find that it is fascinating, it is history, it is heritage, it's all part of what makes up the history of this place where we all live. And also quite often you get like it connects to wider themes and wider events in the place. So this one was quite nice. It's submitted to us by Norman Parks. He was kind enough to share this photograph, which this gentleman, if you can see my mouse, you might be able to see it. This gentleman here is William Mann. He was the harbour master and was Norman Parks' great-grandfather. And he was the harbour master in Portrush from 1860 to about 1900. And this is just a lovely photograph of them launching a new boat called the Caravogue. And they're all in their Victorian garb and attire, very well dressed for the beach or the harbour, but that's the way they would have dressed at that time. And it's a lovely photograph. And it just reminds me of the maritime heritage, the boating, the sailing tradition, all of these, that feature that would be so important along the coast for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So even something as simple as this connects and ties into that rich maritime heritage and history that we all share along this area. But as well as that's quite an interesting, well, coincidence. It's not really connected as such, but there was, I believe in 2022 or 2021, there was actually the remains of the clinker-built Drontheim was unearthed by a storm in Portrush Harbour. And Drontheims were quite popular in the sort of 1800s. So, and I think this Drontheim was like unearthed pretty much like almost exactly where the people are standing in this photograph. So it's just quite an interesting one, and people were able to come from the Portrush area and from further afield to go and look at the remains of this wreck in the harbour that people have been walking over for years, maybe their whole life, and never knew that it was there. So they're just like a little glimpse back in time. And in a similar way, this photograph is achieving the same thing. And who knows, that Drontheim that everybody was looking at last year might have already been sunk and could actually be in that picture, but under the sand. So I thought that was kind of cool and was quite a nice one. And like I said, yeah, I just really love all those little links and how even your personal stories and your heritage and your history all layers together to form this picture of where we are and who we are and the history of this area. So I am going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to finish by saying thank you to everybody. I hope you find that interesting. As I said before, if you're interested in what we're doing, definitely give us a wee follow on social media, and I'm quite happy to circulate the slides from this evening, and it has my contact details, so you can feel free to give me a shout anytime about Uncharted Histories or for anything else. And yeah, happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Just before I open the floor to any other questions, the map that you were using there, is that available for anyone to use?
The sort of the background.
No, just your website.
So yeah, anyone can access it.
Go in. Do you want to drop the link maybe for that into the chat bar for people?
Yep. I will do that now.
And so you mentioned that there's a launch for it next month. Does that mean that the project's sort of closed, or is it going to be ongoing? And if people still have stories that they'd like to add, can they get in contact with you, and can that be added onto it as well?
Yes, we do hope that we can keep adding stories to the map. Obviously, we'll be working with yourselves and on the exhibition, and there's the avenue through that as well. But we will be, hopefully, we will be working with James, our mapper, so he can teach us how we might be able to keep adding to this in years to come. Because yeah, something like this is quite organic. You want to be able to keep adding to it in years to come. So that is our ambition. So yes, if anybody has any histories that they want to still share, definitely can still get in touch. And we have yet to add to the NI archive collection as such, so that's all still to be done, so that can be done at a minimum as well. But no, we definitely want to be able to keep adding stories. We're just, yeah, the only hesitation you can sense from me is just being able to hoping that it'll work in practice, because as we all know, when it's working with technology, you have the best will in the world, but like there always seems to be some kind of obstacle that you don't anticipate. But no, our ambition is that it would be added to in years to come. And if there was enough of an interest as well, that would justify that even if we had to pay somebody to do it or whatever, that we would be able to organize that and get it done.
That's great. Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording. And if anyone's got any questions, we'll take those.